I'm Amber, and I had everything a child could possibly want growing up, at least on the surface. My dad brought home the big bucks as a hotshot engineer, and my stay-at-home mom kept our big suburban house spotless. Jake and I attended the most prestigious private school in town, but all of that glitz and money couldn't make up for what was missing: my parents' love and attention. From the moment Jake was born, it was obvious that he was the golden child, and they swooned over his every move. Why? Because of the way our parents responded when Jake began playing hockey at age 5, you would have assumed he had just won an Olympic gold medal. Our future NHL star dad would tell anyone who would listen, "Mark my words, Jake's going to be the next Gretzky." Meanwhile, I would be sitting there with my straight report card, which didn't even warrant a good job. But hey, that's life when you're the less loved child, right? As the years passed, Jake's obsession with hockey only grew stronger due to our parents' unwavering desire for him to succeed, pouring copious amounts of. I loved my brother Jake, even though he was a good kid who occasionally acted like a brat. It wasn't his fault that our parents put him on such a pedestal, but as I watched him put on those $500 skates while I was still wearing hand-me-downs, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of resentment. Little did I know that those feelings would only grow stronger in the years to come as I headed off to college. Jake invested money into the best gear, private coaches, and elite summer camps. Jake's hockey career would continue to dominate our family dynamic, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's take a moment to reflect. Despite feeling like a constant afterthought at home, I managed to forge my own path by working hard in school and getting accepted to a prestigious college to study interior design, which was my passion and the one thing that was truly mine that wasn't tarnished by Jake's shadow. College life was a whirlwind of new experiences and freedom, so I threw myself into my studies with the intention of. The constant weight of being the less preferred child seemed to lessen with each day that I spent away from home. I didn't call my parents very often, and when I did, the conversations were short and superficial. It wasn't until my junior year that I received a true update on what was going on back home, and it wasn't pretty, Amber. You won't believe this nonsense Mom huffed during one of our infrequent calls. Jake's coach is being completely. What's going on? Your brother is 16 now, and all of a sudden he's not getting the ice time he deserves. We spent so much time on his training, and now he's just warming the bench. Your father and I have tried to speak with the coach and even the team owner, but they won't listen. Time passed, and before I knew it, I was putting on my cap and gown and getting ready to graduate as I looked around the room for I could easily spot my family because they were the ones who were looking distracted and checking their phones every few minutes after the ceremony. I walked over to them with my diploma in hand and a proud smile on my face. My dad gave me a quick hug and said, "Hey, we can't stay long. Jake has a big game tonight, and we promised we'd be there early to talk strategy with his coach." I watched them away with my graduation gown, and I felt heavy. A few months later, I was settled into mine. When I was sketching out ideas for a client one evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom Jake saying, "Your father is looking for brother. He won't talk to anyone." I stared at the message, a mixture of emotions swirling in my chest. I loved every minute of it, the creativity, the challenge, and the satisfaction of seeing a space transform under my vision. I started my dream job as an interior designer and got a new flat. I didn't call Jake that night or the next, telling myself I was too busy with work, but I knew deep down that I was avoiding the drama because it was easier to stay focused on my own life and building the career I'd always dreamed of. Weeks turned into months, and I've heard tidbits from my parents about Jake's ongoing search for a new team about the agents and things. I felt bad for Jake because I knew how much hockey meant to him, but one part of me wasn't proud of it. I threw myself into my work, taking on more clients and pushing myself to new creative heights. My designs were getting noticed, and I was establishing a solid reputation in the field, but it all felt distant, like news from another world. Just when I thought I would have to focus only on my career, love came calling in the form of Eric, the charming guy who spilt red wine on the immaculate white carpet I'd so carefully cleaned. Chosen as I assisted him in cleaning up the mess, we started talking, and before I knew it, we had spent the entire evening in our own little bubble. Our relationship quickly blossomed, and by the time we reached our first anniversary, we had decided to move in together. Those 2 years of cohabitation were full of love, laughter, and the kind of domestic bliss I had always envied in others, but never imagined I'd have for myself. On my 25th birthday, Eric took me out for what I assumed was a simple date night. When I called to tell my parents about the news, they seemed genuinely excited and insisted on meeting Eric right away. They even offered to host a dinner for us, so I was cautiously optimistic as we drove to my childhood home that weekend. After our celebratory dinner, as we were walking through the park, he suddenly dropped to one knee and pulled out a small velvet box. Eric then slipped the gorgeous ring onto my finger, and I felt a surge of joy followed by the familiar pain of anxiety. Began fairly well, with my parents welcoming Eric and me feeling the center of attention for once. However, when the main called to familiar to familiar our turn, and Eric's dad said, refilling his wine glass, "Did Amber tell you about her brother Jake? He's quite the hockey player, you know." I felt my heart skip a beat as my parents began to go into great detail about Jake's most recent attempts to restart his hockey career. Eric said, "Bless him," multiple times, but it felt like. Mom gave me a tight hug and whispered, "I'm so happy, okay? Splanning, let's okay, 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 I." Despite this, the evening ended well. My parents insisted on paying for dinner and even gave us their blessing as we left. Over the next few weeks, I found myself in a whirlwind of wedding preparations, and to my surprise, my mother became my constant companion in this journey. We met for coffee to discuss call. I caught him one evening looking over seating charts with the same fervor he usually reserved for Jake's hat strategies. If that, shot that, you don't that to that, we can hand Venices, see Venices, we Venice, see, and even shared a tearful moment as I tried on wedding dresses. Dad even got involved, insisting on covering half of the wedding costs and negotiating with Eric's parents like it was a business deal he was determined to win. He looked up at me with a gentle smile on his pumpkin inning, to pumpkin, why want everything to be perfect. I felt a warm feeling in my chest. This was all I had ever wanted to feel, that I mattered to my parents, that I was the center of their love sunny and attentia sunny afternoon. I was sitting at my parents' dining room table, surrounded by color swatches, and Flo Mom, Mon Mom, and Eric's mother, Linda, got into a heated argument about serviette color you. Linda firmly shook her head, but blush would go so well with the bridesmaids' dresses. Amber, what do you think? I couldn't help but smile, honestly. Both women looked at me as if I had grown a second head, and Amber, mom, patted my hand and said, "This is you day, every detail matters." I bent back a laugh, wondering how I could have ever seen my mother so invested in something that was so personal to me. The great serviette was almost comical. After a heated argument about whether we should have a live band or a DJ, Eric's father Tom and I exchanged a playful look. I suggested a band for the ceremony and dinner and a DJ for the dance party. Both men gave me a newfound respect, so I said, proudly, "See, Tom, my girls got it all figured out." But even as I reveled in this newfound parental authority, just as we were settling on the venue details, reality snuck in. Mom's phone buzzed, and her face lit up as she read the message. "Oh, this is wonderful news. Jeff drew at the team in Calgary next week, and just like that yet, the spell broken. Ah, that's great." I tried not to sound disappointed, so I said, "We'll need to reschedule our cake tasting." Mom said, "I'm already tipped furiously on my phone. Your father and I need to fly out with Jake. This could be as big." Over the next few weeks, this kept coming up. For every wedding plan we were able to finalize, there was an interruption related to Jake. For example, a venue walkthrough was canceled due to Jake's important training session, and a meeting with the florist was interrupted when my parents had to rush Jake to a last-minute interview with a scout. One evening, as Eric and I were reviewing the guest list, I sobbed into Eric's shoulder, saying, "I don't understand. They're spending thousands on flights and hotels." Eric held me close while stroking my hair for Jake's hockey pipe dream, but they couldn't stay for one awful florist appointment. I know it's difficult, but at least they're helping with the wedding expenses, so I nodded and wiped my eyes. He was right. Of course, the old Amber would have been furious, ready to call it quits, but I was trying to be more understanding and mature. The days passed quickly as we made last-minute wedding preparations, even though Jake would occasionally. A week before the wedding, I was reviewing last-minute details with our planner when my phone buzzed. Mom's name flashed green, and hello, Mom, I was just about to call you about the rehearsal. Did tomorrow? Amber, honey, Mom, she said. I was riding high on a wave of excitement and anticipation, and everything was falling into place. The venue was ideal, the flowers were ordered, and my dress fit like a dream. I could almost taste the happiness that awaited me on my big day. I felt like I'd been doused with ice water because we need to talk about that. Your father has an urgent business trip, so we'll have to reschedule the rehearsal and possibly postpone the wedding date as well. I'm sorry, Mom. Please tell me you're kidding. I were, but your father's job is really important, and I need to go with him for support. We'll let you know back, and we can set a new date. Happening not now, not when we were so close, Mom. The wedding is in a week, and we can't just put it off. What about all the guests and vendors? Everything is paid for. I know it's inconvenient, Amber, but sometimes these things happen. I ended the call after a few days, and my carefully planned world fell apart around me. How could they do this after all the progress we'd made and all the moments I believed we'd shared? Eric discovered me an hour later, curled up on our. As night fell, I found myself aimlessly browsing social media for any diversion from the chaos in my head. That's when I came across a post from Jake that made my blood run cold. Europe, OPK, coming yo. I can't wait to show these Europeans. I poured out the entire story, punctuated by sobs, and we spent the next few hours brainstorming solutions. Could we postpone? What would it cost? Could we do it without them? Nothing felt right. Club's what real hockey looks like, and I'm grateful to my parents for always supporting me. I can feel that this is going to be my big break, and everything came together with sickening clarity. My parents weren't on a business trip, and they were willing to forego my wedding to fulfill Jake's hockey pipe dreams, so I pressed the call button next to his name, and each ring felt like an eternity as I paced our living room, my mind racing with emotions. Hey sis. Jake's upbeat voice came over the speaker. What's up? I took a deep breath to keep my voice steady. Jake, I just saw your post about traveling to Eastern Europe. What's going on? Mom and Dad are the best. You know they're paying for everything, including the flight, my agent, and a swanky hotel, and they're even coming with me for support. Can you believe it? My heart fell. When exactly are you going? I asked, dreading the response. Leave next Friday. Tryouts begin on Sunday. That's my wedding day, my boy rising Jake. There was a pause, and Jake laughed. Oh, I forgot about that. Jake then said, well, you can always reschedule, right? I felt like I'd been slapped. How can you even suggest that? Look, Amber. My career is more important than any wedding. You can get married any day, but this might be my last chance to make it big. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jake, you're 22 years old. Don't you think it's time you handled your own career without Mom and Dad holding your hand? And hockey, something snapped inside me. Years of pent-up frustration and hurt came pouring out. Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea how many times I've been pushed aside for your hockey dreams? How many times have Mom and Dad chosen you over me? Now you want me to forfeit my wedding day. Hey, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. Jake said, I'm not concerned about your future. I'm not sacrificing my career for your little party, with no remorse at all. I stood in stunned silence, unable to believe it was my own brother. He laughed, the sound grating on my already frayed nerves. Why would I do that when they're so willing to help? I'd be stupid to turn down their support. Can't you see how selfish you're being? Disregarding one of the most important events in my life and my parents' willingness to lie to me in order to leave me on my wedding day for yet another of Jake's hockey pipe dreams, anger welled up inside of me. Why should I have to put my life on hold for Jake? Why couldn't my parents be honest with me? The unfairness of it all was overwhelming. I collapsed onto the couch, my mind reeling from all the years I spent trying to comprehend and justify their actions in the hopes that things would. As we pulled into the driveway, Eric gave me a reassuring squeeze on my hand. You've got this, he whispered, and I nodded, drawing strength from his support. Mom answered the door, her smile faltering as she took in our serious expressions. Amber, Eric, what a surprise. Come in, she said, finding Dad in the living room, absorbed in what appeared to be flight reservations on his laptop. As we entered, Mom and Dad promptly closed it. I started my son more steadily than I thought we should, and before they composed themselves, their faces flashed with guilt about Jake's trip to Europe and the wedding. What about Jake's dad? He asked innocently. I told you I have an important business trip stop. I interrupted him, and my patient, wearing the I know the truth face, told me everything. A heavy silence descended upon the room as the parents exchanged glances and acted curated. All right, Mom, sigh. We're taking Jake to Europe for his hockey tryouts. But Amber, you must realize what I'm saying. My wedding day is nothing in comparison to Jake's hockey career, and his dad's face has hardened. Now, listen, young lady, you're being selfish. This is Jake's future. He's talented, and this could be his big break as his family. Need to support him.
Cool.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing, selfish me. What about all the times you've chosen Jake over me, my graduations, my accomplishments, and now my wedding? When has it ever been about me? Amber's mother begged, you're an adult now. You have your career, your life with Eric. Jake still needs our help too. I shot back, trying to pursue a dream that is obviously unattainable. He's 22 years old, for crying out loud. But the room fell silent once more. I took a deep breath and decided that I wasn't going to postpone or cancel the wedding. If you decide not to attend, that's your fault. I'm done putting my life on hold for Jake's ambitions. My parents looked at me in shock, and then my dad's face darkened. Now, listen to him growl and jab a finger at me. We're paying for half of this wedding, you'll follow our instructions, or we'll cancel all of our payments because you can't afford this wedding without us. Eric was tense next to me, ready to jump to my defense, but I silently squeezed his hand and asked him to let me handle this. Actually, Dad, I said in a calm voice, despite the emotional storm inside of me. Eric and I are prepared to take out a loan to cover your half, and we'll pay you back in full for every cent you've spent. The following week was intense. We went ahead with the bachelor and bachelorette parties, the wedding rehearsal, and all the last preparations. Throughout it all, a small part of me kept hoping that my parents would. The morning of my wedding day dawned bright and clear, as if the universe itself was celebrating with us. The ceremony was everything I'd ever dreamed of and more as I walked down the aisle, not on my father's arm, but on my own, a symbol of the strength I'd found within myself, and saw Eric waiting for me.
Cool.
His face was beaming with love and joy, and I knew I'd made the right decision when we exchanged vows, our voices steady and full of love. The reception was a flurry of laughter, dancing, and celebration. We ate, drank, and made merry with people who genuinely cared about us. The photo shoot captured moments of pure, unadulterated happiness, with Eric and I looking into each other's eyes and our friends lifting us onto their shoulders. We vowed to love and support each other through whatever life might throw at us as we sealed our union with a kiss. We all laughed as we tried a group dance number, but reality didn't set in until a week after our honeymoon ended. My phone rang and my mother's number, Amber Sweetie, came on. Her voice sounded strained and exhausted. We're back from Europe. Can we meet? We need to talk.
Cool.
I took a deep breath, steeling myself, but no, Mom, I don't think that's a good idea, but your brother didn't make the team, and he's devastated, Amber. He's currently meeting his big sister, so I closed my eyes and resisted. The following day, I transferred the entire amount my parents had contributed to the wedding into their account. It was a sizable sum, and Eric and I would be repaying the loan for some time, but it felt worth it for the freedom it bought us a few weeks later. I ended the call and blocked their numbers because, once again, I'm sorry to hear that, Mom, but that's not my problem anymore. Please don't call me again. Focus on Jake. He obviously needs you more than I do. My friend Liv called to inform me about a social media post my parents had made, portraying me as the bad guy and accusing me of being selfish for getting married without their consent.
Cool.
The comments were full of people who sympathized with me but didn't know the full story. However, my cousins, aunts, and uncles, who had been there and witnessed the years of neglect and favoritism, stepped in and shared the truth, criticizing my parents for their actions for repeatedly. Putting Jake's interests ahead of my own, I was moved by their support, but I chose not to participate. Months went by, and life settled into a lovely new rhythm. Eric and I focused on our careers, traveled, and made plans for the future. When we learned we were expecting our first child, our happiness was untarnished by family drama. Every now and then, I would receive updates about Jake and my parents via the family grapevine. Jake had begun drinking heavily after his hockey dreams. A part of me felt sorry for them for the mess they'd made with their favoritism and enabling, but a bigger part of me knew it wasn't my burden to bear. As I sat in the nursery that Eric and I had lovingly prepared for our baby, the family I'd always longed for, the love and support I'd craved, with my hand resting on my growing belly, I realized something profound was making it right here at this same moment.